Well, good thing I stayed up for this one. The Toronto Raptors have made a trade, and after what was another bitterly disappointing fourth quarter collapse, we really needed the Raptors to get something done, and they have done just that. The Toronto Raptors have acquired Trayce Jackson-Davis from the Golden State Warriors. We were clamoring. I mean, it was pretty apparent in that loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Raptors are missing size. It's been very apparent all throughout the season that they are very much missing size in this team. We needed more depth in the center position. And thankfully, thankfully, that has now been addressed by the Raptors front office and general manager Bobby Webster. Things are looking pretty bleak throughout the day, to be honest. All the reports coming out were that the trade for Domantas Sabonis was no longer going to happen. And then the Raptors traded Ochai Agbaji for Chris Paul just to duck under the tax. And after that trade, it kind of felt like, well, Ochai Agbaji is kind of like the guy we were supposed to use in a trade to get the type of player that we needed. But the Raptors have still been able to trade Agbaji and duck the tax, and now acquire a player that is going to help them and I think will fit into the rotation here. And they're still under the tax. So pretty solid work overall. And honestly, it could have been a lot worse. Decent pickup overall for the Raptors. So thank you so much for coming through and joining me live. I know this is an unexpected stream that we're just going to roll out here. Won't be too long here. Just wanted to give my first initial thoughts on the Raptors acquiring Trayce Jackson-Davis from the Golden State Warriors. The Raptors, as reported here by Shams Charania of ESPN, the Raptors have given Golden State Warriors a 2026 second-round pick via the Lakers. That was the only 2026 second-round pick that the Toronto Raptors had. They traded away and get a rotational big in return. Like, you can't really be upset about the value. You cannot be upset about the value here. The Raptors have given it. Basically, they traded, let's look at it this way. They traded Agbaji and 2 second-round picks, and they've acquired Trayce Jackson-Davis. That's not too bad. That's not too bad of a return overall for the Raptors. But thank you for the people returning here for the stream today. Big shout-outs to the people in the chat who are up late with me and are coming through to hear the first thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the chat right now. We have Matucci, Alamdar, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, Q-Man, DK, Pretty Butterfly, YT, Dennisy, Hank Gaming, Darren Prince, Simple Tanker. A lot of people coming through in the chat. A lot of people questioning the height here. So, Trayce Jackson-Davis, let's go through him statistically. This is his third season in the NBA. He's a previous 57th overall pick in the draft. He was 57th overall pick in 2023. I thought it was a bit of a fall for him. I was a bit of a fan of him from the college days for Indiana. And in the NBA, he's had some impact for the Warriors. He is a good pick and roll man. He is a solid finisher on the inside, and he is a decent rebounder. Now, as people in the chat are pointing out here, this is not necessarily the traditional big man that the Toronto Raptors were looking for here. They were looking for, we as fans were probably looking for a more so, 6'10" guy, 6'11" guy, 7-foot guy, and the Raptors haven't addressed that here. They've brought in a player who is 6'9", but rebounds a bit better than the height suggests. Is a good interior scorer, good pick and roll man, and perhaps with the size a little bit more switchable on the perimeter defensively. So it's not exactly like the pure rim protector that I think was kind of an important need to address. It is definitely help with the big rotation. It does provide size, and I believe this is a trade that will help with the rotation. And all of that while really not giving away anything of significance whatsoever. We needed to trade Agbaji to get under the tax. Yes, it cost us 2 second-round picks to do that, but I don't think Trayce Jackson-Davis in return is bad at all. A player in his mid-20s, maybe still with room to grow. At least a player that's going to help for the rest of the season. Again, I can't really be too upset about this one here. He's making $2.2 million. He has a team option of $2.4 million for next season, so we can even keep that on for next season. So initially, I kind of like, it's not quite the size we were looking for, but we do have to understand who we're working with here. It is not typical of a Bobby Webster front office here to go for that traditional sort of size in that position. The Raptors look for somebody who has more mobility, somebody who can play more roles, and maybe they see a larger pathway towards minutes for a player who kind of fits into that. And leading up to this, I was kind of feeling like a bit worried today after the Ibaka trade. Like, who are we gonna trade now to get a player back? Well, we didn't even need to move a player in order to get this one done. So I'm pretty satisfied with this one here. They needed a big. They've brought in a big. And look, it's not like it's not a glamorous sort of trade. It's not like a trade that is going to completely alter the trajectory of the franchise. But I said at the minimum, I've been saying it for weeks, at the minimum, bring somebody who can fit your rotation, who can supplement the depth, who can give you size and can give you rebounding. And you know what? The Raptors didn't give away much in order to make that happen. So I am pretty satisfied with this as of now, and there's still room for the Raptors as we get towards a 3 p.m. trade deadline on February 5th to get more work done. But let's see what the chat is saying here. Alamdar mentions undersized, but still good rebounder. Yep, not quite the size we're looking for, but again, maybe more possibility of having a bit more switchability on defense. He's not the fastest guy. He's definitely not like a super switchable center, but perhaps more switchable than other options they were looking at, like, maybe Brook Lopez's or Kevon Looney's, for example. Do I think the Sabonis deal is cooked? I do believe the Sabonis deal is now cooked. It kind of was indicated as such throughout the day, and now that they're making a trade like this, it certainly does feel like Sabonis isn't a play. It didn't feel like Sabonis was a play anyways. That being said, the Sabonis trade would have involved RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl. It still would have required you to have a backup center, an option like this, so could still work, I suppose. People complaining about the height of the center. He's a good rebounder. He can play a bit above his size. Again, obviously we were looking for as fans, as I mentioned, like a more traditional 7-footer. But I don't think this is. I think this is a player that fits a lot of the requirements of what we were looking for in this spot here. Never heard of this guy. Y'all just don't know ball, man. This is a solid rotational piece that the Warriors have had for the last couple of years. Now this year, granted, his play time has fallen away a little bit, but he's given them decently solid rotation minutes the last couple of years. Hey, if you don't know about him, hopefully I'm giving you a little bit of insight into what he can bring to the team. Another Mobo. He's a different player than Mobo. He's a lot more of a polished and refined player than Mobo. Mobo was a large bet on, and seemingly now a losing bet on athleticism and length and switchability. This is different here. This is a much more polished player. A guy, I think it was 4-year player out of college, so drafted as a senior, partially why he was drafted so late in the 2023 draft, going 57th overall, but more polished, good pick and roll player, solid rebounder, as I mentioned, smarter player, good finisher, and I think will work with a lot of the pieces that the Raptors have on the team. It's pretty lazy to just say another Mobo just because I Googled Trayce Jackson-Davis height, for example. Pretty sad we didn't try and get Missy or Sharp. There's a comment here from Gaz Jas. How do you know they didn't? There's no way of knowing who the Raptors have been going in for. There was not, from what I've seen, there was not a peep about a trade regarding Trayce Jackson-Davis. So we would say, you could say tomorrow, why didn't they go for like Trayce Jackson-Davis? Didn't make this happen. Like, maybe they did. Maybe they did look at other guys, and this was the best option available. They gave away a second-round pick to do this. One singular mid-second-round pick. Other guys like Day'Ron Sharpe would have cost a lot more than a singular mid-second-round pick in order to get the trade to happen there. Would be kind of disappointed this was it. To be honest, I'm at the point where, like, I can understand where I understand where we're at, and I feel like at this point I'd be pretty satisfied. Like if they made this trade tomorrow, near the deadline, I'd be okay. Like we made a trade. If this was it, I still think. I still would like to address the need for some additional shooting. I'm kind of feeling like no more trades are going to happen, but something could still happen. We didn't think this would happen, and yet it happened in close proximity to the loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I feel pretty satisfied that they addressed one of the needs, which was getting additional size and additional big man to add to the rotation. As much as he's not, as big as some other guys would have want, Can we still get started? I doubt any other trade is going to happen for a big. If we've gone for Trayce Jackson-Davis already, I don't imagine we're going for any other center. Is he a good defender? Not the he's definitely not a locked-in defender. Definitely not like that defensive anchor sort of piece. What he gives you is size and rebounding, and the Raptors defense has been fine really this season. It's just been having that more having that presence on the inside will be beneficial. He's not the greatest defender. Look, we gave away a single second-round pick to get him, as I mentioned. Not the greatest of defenders, but he's solid, uses his size well, and can rebound well. And I think that's something that will help the Raptors, even if I'm maybe even underselling a little bit for the player and underselling it towards you a little bit. Good player to fit in, and I really think he'll fit well with Darko Rajakovic on offense. Like I said, he's a great pick and roll player. I think this will help out some of the guard play with the team as well, for sure. Does he stretch the floor? No, not at all. Not in the slightest. He's not a floor spacer whatsoever. I'd be surprised if he's taken more than 5 threes in his entire NBA career. Correct. He's taken 5 threes his entire NBA career. Only 5. That being said, he's 1,000 from 3 this season. He's 1 of 1. No, not a floor spacer. Not a guy spacing the floor. I assure you, a player like this who could also space the floor is not going for just the 1 second-round pick there. I'd rather go for something that can improve the bench more, plus the center has to be 6'10". Not necessarily. When it comes to not necessarily. Look, there are going to be certain matchups that this doesn't address. Like, we kind of did want to go in and address the need. Like, if you're going up against a Zubats or DeAndre Ayton or a Joel Embiid, this is not a body you can throw against them. I understand why there's issue there, but it's possible the Raptors have gone in for players like that and decided like this was a better value play and this is a player that fits better with what Darko Rajakovic wants to do. Would a player like a Brook Lopez, for example, would that have garnered enough attention for Darko to use rotation? Maybe not. This is a player that maybe they see being more usable towards the team this season and having more of a fit, especially if they can get Jakob Poeltl back. He's been ramping up his workouts, and hopefully he can come back from injury very soon. Going through a bit more of the chat here. Our entire season is riding on Yak's back, Blue Week says. It kind of is. If he doesn't get traded, kind of a large part of it thinks. Any more moves you think for a real center? I don't think they would have gone for giving away any assets for Jackson-Davis here if the plan was to get an additional center tomorrow. So I think as far as addressing like the center position, this is it. Unless there's a big trade, I can't see like another lower tier, mid tier trade for a player like Yves Missy, for example. I think they would have prioritized using the assets to go and get him. The fact that they've used a second round pick, and it's just 1 pick, but it's a second round pick. They've discarded an asset here, and they have also filled up a roster spot here. I can't see them going for another big like that. Good rotation guy. Good rotation piece, I think. That cost you a second round pick from the Lakers. Not too bad for me. Obviously, I'm fearful of the Jakob Poeltl injury as well. I understand where the concern is there. I'm very concerned there as well. But he's ramping up his exercises, and we got to pray. We got to pray it's good at this point because we've seen the issues that have gone on the last few games. The blown lead to the Knicks, the blown lead to the Magic, the blown lead to the Timberwolves. A factor contributing to that was a lack of physicality lack of rim protection, lack of rebounding. But we just needed an extra body for the bigs, and we got that here. Is it the perfect fit? It is not. But I think trading away what we did to get a rotation piece that fits with the system and I think will earn play time with the team is a positive for the Raptors. I don't think it should be spun as a negative here. So I'm content. You know, I'm not like jumping for joy. I'm not busting out the champagne out of the fridge or anything. I'm not popping the champagne for celebrate or anything, but I'm content. This is solid, especially for what they gave away. I think it's a player that will help out with the team, and I think this is a player that has demeanor that if you're a doubter, give him an opportunity. I think that this is a player that can win over a lot of Raptors fans because I think he's going to put in a lot of work for the team and is going to help us out currently in the spot that we're currently in. But like I said, again, part of this does rely on Jakob Poeltl returning from injury and being able to be actually effective on the court, which he has not been able to do so far this season for the team. Absolutely. Other trades we've seen around the NBA tonight. This one, I mean, the Warriors, not the only work that they've done. Quite surprising, actually. Jonathan Kuminga finally does have a new home. He got traded away from the Golden State Warriors to the Atlanta Hawks. In a trade that sends Kristaps Porzingis to the Golden State Warriors. So interesting swing for the Hawks to go for, Sean puts it as a sharpshooter on the wings. I don't know that about sharpshooter, but like, you know, a swing on a player with high upside. I agree that's the case. He hasn't been able to find it yet, but a good player to take a bet on here. The Warriors bring in some size and a player who can space the floor from three. Porzingis obviously has his health issues as well, but here's a player who was like a main contributor on a Celtics team that won an NBA championship recently. Now, granted, he was injured a lot of that playoff run, but he was exceptional throughout the season, helping propel them to that spot. So I kind of like it from both sides. I think this is pretty solid from both teams overall. Solid on both sides there. Okay, we'll stay alive a little bit longer here. Doesn't help the size at all. I mean, Ronnie, you're just going to have to go back and watch the entire stream because we've already explained the situation overall. Would I have traded RJ for Porzingis? Porzingis, I think, I'm going to imagine Porzingis is on a worse contract, so I probably wouldn't have. It's only 2 years. It's in the last year. He's in the last year of his contract, so I would have done it just because it's an expiring contract, and I think that fits a little bit better. I would have done that, probably, to be honest, RJ for Porzingis. But trades that some teams make aren't always available for every team, and if I'm the Atlanta Hawks, I'd rather have Jonathan Kuminga than RJ Barrett. I'd take a swing there instead. Pretty well hopeless. Just looking at other trades. I think people are too fixated on what Trayce Jackson-Davis isn't and aren't focused enough on what he is. And I think we'll end off shortly here. Ultimately, I think this is a player that fits well within the offensive system, is a quality player in the pick and roll, is a good interior scorer. So I think he fits just a lot of kind of the hits of what you want for a Darko Rajakovic offensive system. Works well in transition, where the Raptors have had their most success on offense this season. We've always seen the struggles in the half court. The trade for Big was never going to address the half court concerns of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, a little bit more flexibility to his positional versatility. Play him in conjunction with guys like Colin Murray-Boyles and Sandro Mamukelashvili and maybe even sometimes with Jakob Poeltl. But it's just an extra body to throw into the rotation for center, which the Raptors were desperately lacking in. Like, there were certain lineups in this recent run of games, like the tallest player on the court was 6'7". Now we're upgrading that, not tremendously, to 6'9". But despite that, plays above his size a little bit. Solid with his rim protection. quality rebounder, as we've said here, quality rebounder, especially for the size. Like, you look at the per 36 numbers here. Over the course of the NBA career, he's averaging 11 rebounds per game per 36. Quality rebounder despite the size, so we needed extra rebounding. Yeah, it's not quite the body to throw against the true big bodies that we played against, but for what the Raptors gave up, Agbaji in his second to duck the tax, then just a singular second-round pick to bring in Trayce Jackson-Davis, I can only really see this move as a positive move for the Raptors. Again, not like the greatest trade of all time here, but it's solid. It's a solid move that helps the Raptors and addresses a big gap currently within the rotation. And with it being past midnight at this point, I think that's where we have to wrap it up. So appreciate you guys tuning in live. As a reminder, we're back live again for NBA trade deadline. I'm live Thursday, February 5th, 3 p.m. Eastern time to react to everything we saw from the trade deadline. It's possible the Raptors are all wrapped up and this is it, but it's also possible that they're not. And they've got some other moves that they are going to want to get done. We'll just have to wait and see.